In this series, we're going to use so many different cameras and tools and pieces of gear, but what is actually really essential? If you have a look at see what Julian and Sarah are using, they have their video cameras and some quite expensive accessories. How many of these are essential if you are starting out? I've got loads of things in front of me and a bit to the side of me. I'm going to go through some core pieces of gear. I'm not going to go into the camera to buy or the lenses to buy. This is about the key accessories that you need to be a filmmaker. This is the same tripod I showed you on. This is the same tripod I showed you on Brighton Beach. This one I've had for probably about 11 years or so. This is a fluid head tripod. You need that when shooting video, a nice fluid head. This is a stills tripod. It is a really nice tripod, but this is not good for video because it's not for movement. This is really just for support because you can't pan, you can't tilt, but you can use it for this, for shooting in portrait mode if you want to shoot portrait video. But other than that, you need a tripod with a nice fluid head. The tripod is broken down into two parts, the head and the legs, or sticks as we call them. The type of sticks, there's lots of types out there. I like these. These are a little bit more like photographic ones. They are really great for shooting out and about on uneven surfaces, whereas floor spreaders are great if you're just going to be indoors the whole time. You can have center spreaders as well, which is kind of a middle ground. One thing I look for in a tripod is one that can go nice and low, and one can go to a decent height, at least really 7 foot. Anything higher than that is great if you can do it, but you are going to need a step ladder if you want to get to see the camera. With the tripod head, what we're looking for is a couple of key things. First off is the payload. What weight can the tripod take? What is the maximum weight? But also you need to understand what is the minimum weight. So you can get one which can take a really big heavy camera, but most likely it won't be able to take a DSLR at all, and it'll be really awkward to operate. You've got to find the tripod that works for your camera. Ideally one that does take a heavier camera, but also one that takes a lighter camera. Basically cameras that you yourself will use, because you really want a tripod that's going to last you for many, many years. This head has really nice movement. It's very smooth for our pans and our tilts, and it is also balanced. You can see I set it to different positions and it just stays there. To get it into that position, part of it is down to positioning of the camera, and you also have the ability to change the counterbalance on certain tripod heads. Audio is a really important part of your gear and you must not forget it. You need the right type of mics, the right type of recorder if you need that. I'll go through how we record sound when we're out shooting and doing real world stuff, but let's get to the core things that you really do need. Let's start off with the internal camera mic, which you don't use. It is nice to have an internal mic as a reference, just in case you've forgotten to bring your proper mic, but the quality is generally pretty bad, especially on the Canon DSLRs, quite possibly some of the worst internal mics I've ever heard. Not much better on Sony cameras, to be honest with you. You really do need to use a better external microphone. I'm going to go through the two main types that you would use. This is a Rode VideoMic Pro, and this is my favorite on-camera mic for the stills, DSLR, mirrorless cameras. This is directional and it is mono, so it means it's going to pick up sound that's in front of it, much more focused sound. Now this is not to replace proper mics for dialogue, for interviews. It's really to get better quality sound than you're going to get with your internal mic. And this is a Rode Stereo VideoMic Pro. This is a really lovely mic as well for going on these cameras. This is going to pick up much more close-up sound. It will pick up you much more than this. And it's nice for getting nature and sounds out and about. But for me, I do prefer this type of mic because it is much more focused. And if you do need to get anybody speaking, you can get it on that much better. Whereas this, you need to be so close to somebody to hear them clearly. This is a 3.5mm jack. This is the connector which puts the mic into the camera. Now, this is pretty standard on most of the DSLR or mirrorless cameras. There are some cameras out there which don't have mic input, some of the cheaper ones, and that is a shame because you're going to be stuck with the internal mic. There are some other external solutions we'll get to in a minute. The real downside to these connectors, and you find this with lots of these bits of gear for the small cameras, is this is not locking, and so when you put this in, this can come out quite easily. Part of the problem is not just that the camera mic on some of these cameras aren't very good, but the preamps aren't very good at all. So preamps is what takes that low voltage sound signal from the microphone and boosts it to a recording level. So on the Canon DSLRs, the preamps are very poor quality. So you end up having to set the level to like 99 to get a decent level. But you end up with a lot of hiss. So microphones like this are really useful because you can push the sound level up, which goes into the camera, by 20 decibels, which means you can have the level set a lot lower on your camera so you get a lot less hiss. This is a proper professional shotgun mic. It's also from Rode, but this is using an XLR connector. Here, it's a proper professional connection, which I've been using all my career. It's nice because it locks and it's solid. This is much better quality sound. It is going to be more expensive when you use this on video cameras like Julian's and like Sarah's, and we use it on boom poles. We're going to see it in use in various different ways throughout the series. The quality of this mic is better. This is a high quality microphone. To get the best quality sound, you need to get your mic as close to the source as possible. And the source right now is me. And the sound is coming from my mouth into this. This is a lav mic. I like to hide my mics. I will show you why I do this and how I do this later on in this series. But this lav mic is a lovely high quality mic. It's really close to me. This is what it looks like here. And this is plugged into a transmitter. This is a wireless mic, goes into the transmitter. And this is the receiver, which is going to take the sound, which is being sent from here, and you plug it into your camera and you're going to record it. Radio mics are really good and really useful and nice and simple to use. The real caveat you just need to be aware of is that frequency issue. Where you buy them tends to be where you can use them. If you use a wireless mic from another country in your country, then you could easily get interference. Now, there are some wireless mics out there which use Wi-Fi now, which can get past that, but always be very careful about your frequencies. When would you use a wireless lav and when would you use a wired lav? Well, kind of the obvious really. Right now we are using a wireless lav. We should be using a wired one. I don't know why. Mainly because we are actually going to go out and about and film me full body walking around in different places, where if I was plugged into a cable, you'll see it. And that's kind of really the main thing. If you're going to see the cable, then you don't want to be on a wired one. A wired one is nice because it saves on batteries and is super reliable and you won't have issues with frequencies. And this is an audio recorder. Very useful devices, especially if your camera cannot record proper audio. It doesn't have a mic input. For starters, it's going to be pretty bad, but really this is what you're looking for to record decent sound if you don't have a good quality video camera. Professional inputs, XLR inputs, really high quality preamps. This one will even take additional microphones if you want, but this is what you want to use to record sound when shooting on those stills cameras. And you'll see this in action when we're doing our interview episode. This is an external monitor. I find these incredibly useful and essential for my filmmaking. The problem we have with a lot of the cameras these days is the viewfinders are, some of them are okay, some of them aren't so good, but the LCD screens all tend to be pretty bad. This is a high quality screen. It's going to really help you with your composition and with your exposure and with your focus. This is daylight viewable, which means it's bright enough to be seen outside without a sun hood. Direct sunshine, you may want to get a sun hood as well. There are screens, which Julian and Sarah are using, which are incredibly bright even in direct sunshine. This monitor only has HDMI connector. In fact, it's a micro HDMI connector, and well, HDMI is not a professional connection, it's a domestic connection, but that's what these cameras have. We don't all have these lovely SDI connectors that the video cameras have. Monitors out there, some are HDMI, some are SDI, and some are both. Filters are really important. This is an essential filter when you're using a camera without ND, neutral density, which we talked about before, a variable ND filter. Make sure you have these in your kit. If you can't afford one for every lens, get one which is the biggest diameter and get step-up rings to go to it. This is an X-Rite color checker. It has a color scale and it has a contrast scales. I use this to match multiple cameras and also just to help me in color grading. When you're out and about filming, just film this for a few seconds on the different cameras you're using, or just your single camera. It will really help you in post, and I'll show you how to do that in the post episode. It's gonna sound really obvious, but it is important to make sure you have these two key accessories: memory cards and batteries. Without these, you're not gonna shoot much, are you? Let's start with memory cards. How many should you get? Well, this is what we shot on the first day, and we used up 7 memory cards. So it's quite a lot. And I don't like to format my cards until they are backed up to at least 2, ideally 3 external hard drives. And even then, I don't want to format over them for a couple of days, just in case I have made a mistake. So having enough memory cards to last at least 2 days shooting is what I would recommend. And really don't get memory cards which have too big a capacity, because if ever any problems with that memory card, you've lost all of that stuff. Never have your entire shoot on one single card. Batteries. Really obvious stuff, but really important. Your camera is going to need that power. Now, back in my news days, you just had one big battery. It would last for hours. So you'd have 4 and you never, ever need more. With cameras like this, I can easily go through a dozen batteries in a day, maybe more. You need to have enough to last you that day. So it's kind of really obvious. But the other thing is, make sure you have enough chargers to charge them up. If you just got one single charger and you've got to charge up 12 batteries overnight, you're going to be setting your alarm every couple of hours to swap them over.